Hey, what's going on, everyone? Dave can watch some guys an update on a multi-day severe weather outbreak. All right, so we've been talking about a lot of tornadoes, a lot of very large hail, but just a lot of supercell activity that's been breaking out here across sections of the plains. All right, last night, unfortunately, we did have a destructive tornado move through the southeast side of the Oklahoma City metroplex. All right, most likely an EF3 plus tornado as far as intensity goes. All right, but for the past few days, we've been tracking severe weather as we've finally, started to see our uptick in storm activity. But we've got another 2 days of severe weather to talk about. Today being a very dangerous day, where we have a 5% risk for tornadoes in Oklahoma, and then tomorrow we have a 10% risk as well. So I've got all the details coming right up. Right, so thank you all for joining me here on this Sunday morning. All right, we're going to go over all of the latest information from the HRRR and the models on today's severe weather event, and then tomorrow's, where tomorrow looks like we could have a potential tornado outbreak. All right, but I think that goes the same for today because we've seen the planes do more 2024 kind of things where we just get so many unexpected turns, and we just see a lot of worst case scenarios break out. So not trying to hype up this forecast, not trying to make anybody scared. I'm just saying my personal thoughts, and also kind of just basing my um, thoughts on this severe weather event based off of the models. All right, so starting out here, take a look at your current radar. What we've got right now is got a big storm system. All right, moving its way throughout the southern United States and the central United States. You can actually see we do have a train of moisture that's kind of feeding into the southern United States that's continuously producing these showers and storms. All right, notice what we've got up here in the Midwest. All right, lower Midwest, we've got a lot of rain showers and thunderstorms starting to spread out across this region. My pen is very glitchy, unfortunately. All right, but you can see a lot of rain is falling out there. Then we also do have some strong to severe storms out in Oklahoma, where we do have some isolated damaging wind gusts. All right, that is from the remnants of our event last night. That's moving its way into Arkansas and into sections of southern Missouri. Still some very intense rainfall out there. So flash flooding is ongoing and is expected to continue in the next coming hours. Now, look what's going on down here in southern Texas. This is the beginning of our event today. All right, you can see we do have some storms and some cells that are starting to pop up here in central Texas. All right, these are going to be moving north into Oklahoma. Once they get into that region where we have the high SRH values, we have the very intense shear, and then also even some of this cape that's starting to build out here. That's when we're really going to start to see these storms ignite. So the fact that we already have initiation this early in the day is very concerning. Right, so that's why we really need to get this out as soon as possible. All right, you can see also we do have a little trough that's related to this whole system. We have the backside of the trough bringing that cold and dry air, and you can even see the spin of it. All right, that's actually bringing some upper elevation snow to sections of Utah. The Rockies have been dumped on with snow, and even sections of northern Arizona with those upper elevations. All right, you can see that we are starting to see some snow break out across that region. All right, if you're not in the upper elevations of the desert southwest, then you're probably just getting some rain showers. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on for the country. All right, so we're gonna move on to our alerts. Let me just pull that up 1 second. Let me get this off your screen, and you can see that as of right now, basically what we've got, we've just got a really big flood watch going out for sections of central and eastern Oklahoma. You got northwestern Arkansas, southern Missouri, southeastern Kansas, and northern Texas in there. So if you're in the dark green shade, you're currently under a flood watch. All right, that's going to stand for the rest of the day because we just have so much rain coming. I mean, we've been talking about easily over 5 inches of rain for everyone that's affected by the severe weather, but we have two more rounds coming, and it's really going to feel like nonstop. But it's pretty much at this point going to be raining for 4 days straight in Oklahoma. So we have flash flooding ongoing as we do have some more shower storms moving through that region now. All right, but that number of flash flood warnings is definitely going to increase as we go later in the day because we are going to see that second round of severe weather to come in. All right, and you can see for the rest of the country, got wind advisory scattered across the desert southwest and southern Nevada, California, and then you can see we also do have the winter weather advisories for those upper elevations of Colorado, Utah, and Arizona here. All right, that's for that upper elevation. So we were talking about a little bit earlier when we were looking at the radar. And then we do have also another winter storm impacting the sections of the Pacific Northwest here into Montana, northern Idaho, and Washington State. You can see we do have some winter weather advisories and some winter storm watches going out for that region. Keep in mind, we also do have some high wind warnings and high wind watches. So we are seeing those very intense and strong winds out there. So please be mindful that there could be some isolated spots of trees down and possibly even some power outages. Other than that, country is just very dry. You can see that we still have some special weather statements for the southern New England out there. All right, we do also have that increased fire danger because it's very windy today, especially out here in Long Island. And it's very dry. So that's pretty much what we've been talking about for the past couple of days. So we move on here to the Storm Prediction Center. This is their day one outlook. All right, as of right now, we are at a slight risk. This is level 2 out of 5 risk going out through sections of northern Texas into southern Oklahoma. All right, that does include a little bit more of a populated area there. It's pretty large, but you've got a population of just under 6 million people. You've got Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Abilene, Texas, Norman, Oklahoma, and Wichita Falls, Texas. All right, but still a lot of big cities and population centers in between. North of the DFW Metroplex is where we do have that slight risk. But surrounding the slight risk, if you're in the dark green shade, we do have a marginal risk. I think that they should slightly extend the slight risk, but it's pretty good for where it is at this point. But maybe include Dallas and a little bit farther into extreme sections of western Arkansas, but that's a pretty good slight risk. As for today's forecast, you can see that we do also have a 5% tornado threat. This was the same for yesterday, but just shifted to the east here. All right, you can see if you're in the red shade, you have a 5% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given location, going out for sections of northern Texas into southern and central Oklahoma. And we have a 2% risk in the dark green shade surrounding the 5% risk. Today's wind threat's 15%. It's not hatched. I do think that we're going to see a higher wind threat a little bit farther off to the east. So maybe over towards Arkansas and sections of far eastern Oklahoma. All right, but as for right now, we have a 15% risk, including all of the slight risk area, and then 5% for the marginal risk area as well. Today's hail threat, it's 15% hatched, which is it's a great forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. I pretty much nailed it as far as what the forecast is shaping up to be. You know, we still don't know what the exact outcome is yet, obviously, but you can see we have a hatched 15% risk. The western half of the 15% risk is hatched, meaning that when those cells begin to move into northern Texas and Oklahoma before they kind of come together and become a little bit of a messier line of storms. All right, they're gonna be semi-discrete, so that means that we're gonna have the potential for these storms to develop large hail cores and also to be able to shoot up tornadoes. So that's why we have the 15% risk here. All right, that's also hatched for those areas that will be receiving the supercells prior to when they kind of come together and kind of connect, if that makes sense. All right, but you have a 5% surrounding the 15% that's going out for areas of the marginal risk. So for tomorrow is the big day. We already have an enhanced risk that's level 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather, including sections of northwestern Arkansas, extreme southwestern Missouri, and sections of eastern Oklahoma, and that does also include areas of extreme northeastern Texas. All right, that's a level 3 to 5 risk. You got Fort Smith, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Springdale, Arkansas, Rogers, Arkansas, and Muskogee, Oklahoma out there, right? That's a total population of just under or just about 2 million people. You also do have the slight risk. That's a pretty broad slight risk that does include sections more of Texas. You got eastern side of Oklahoma. You got western Arkansas. You got southern Missouri. With the total population coming out to just under 15 million people. You got Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Arlington, Texas. And then you also do have that margin risk in the dark green shade, all right? Tomorrow's tornado threat, it's 10% hatched, so it's looking likely that we're going to have a significant tornado event, perhaps even a tornado outbreak. All right, it's looking very likely that we're going to get a few strong to potentially even violent tornadoes. I mean, after what we saw last night, I mean, I think it's certainly possible, but we're going to look at all parameters to make sure we're nailing this forecast down, but the entire 10% risk is hatched, so there's a significant chance for seeing EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of a given point. All right, but that's including all of the enhanced risk area. The 5% is including the slight risk, and then 2% goes into the marginal risk, but I don't think it includes the whole risk area. But really, the 5%, the 10% hatched are the two areas that we need to watch out for, and look at the closest for our tornado threat. All right, tomorrow's wind threat, it is a 30% chance. All right, notice how that's a little bit farther off to the east. I do think we're going to see these. We're going to see a big line of storms. With those supercells, they're going to kind of come together and create this line. All right, we may see a QLCS. I do think we're just going to see just a very broad line of storms that's going to sweep across this area. And I think this is going to produce a widespread damage wind gusts, and that's why we have the 30% chance there, with just under 2 million people included. And then you can see we also do the 15%, the 5% in the yellow and brown shade. Then finally, we do have a hail threat. It's 15%. Pretty much the supercells are going to be developing large hail cores. All right, it's not hatched, but it could definitely be hatched by tomorrow. We'll just have to see what the HRRR and other models say overnight. But as of right now, they're keeping this at a 15% chance going out from northern Texas, including the DFW Metroplex into southern Oklahoma. So pretty similar to areas that got hit hard last night. All right, and then you've got the 5% in the red shade. So, all right, we're going to be moving on here to the HRRR. We're going to be looking at basically just the entire outlook for this for the next couple of days. So you can see what we had as of right now, as of when the 12Z afternoon run of the HRRR came out. We had this big cluster of showers and thunderstorms working their way over to the east, moving their way out of Oklahoma. All right, these are going to be moving to the east, impacting areas of Arkansas into southern Missouri. What you need to look out for is what storms pop up here in southern Texas. That's what we have already. We already have storm initiation, all right, for today. You can see that we already do get a few showers and storms that pop up based off of the HRRR. And, we get a little cluster here into central Texas, but also into northern Texas up towards the Panhandle. We do get a little clump of some supercell activity potentially starting up. Once this, damaging wind bag starts to move out of the way, that's going to allow for these supercells to ignite, and then they'll take advantage of the semi-discrete environment. But you can see that, we just have a lot of supercells dotting all over the place here across sections of northern Texas. We'll click for sounding just to take a look at what kind of environment we have ahead of these, and you can see, all right, photograph's very elongated here, so you can see that we do have that possible hazard type as a tornado. All right, Storm Slinky is fairly messy, but it is turned 75 degrees, so decent Storm Slinky there. All right, we do have sounding analogs matching 2 weak signals for supercell activity, so 67% of a tornado there. All right, and then dew points looking pretty good there into the upper 60s and potentially in the lower 70s. So really, this is not going to be a horrible environment into northern Texas. That's going to allow for these supercells to grow, and that's exactly what we see here. And these supercells continue to just grow in intensity and in size. And this is really when things get pretty spicy. All right, you can see. Look at central Oklahoma. You have cells blaze and blasting through this area. Oklahoma City, you're going to get hammered again, unfortunately, today. All right, but you can see that this photograph looks much more elongated. Look at the instability line. This is really concerning here. All right, but this time you get, wow, see, your significant hail here showing up on the sounding analogs is in support of 4 inches. All right, so we're talking about close to grapefruit size hail. I mean, this is massive hail. Well, I mean, this is almost like softball size hail, but this is bigger than baseball size hail that you're talking about here. And then obviously you do have your significant signal here for a tornado. So this is an incredibly concerning photograph that you see here, right? Our storm Slinky is turned about 70 degrees, so nothing too crazy, but it's definitely a little bit more organized than the last one we saw. Then obviously still our 70-degree dew points and 70-degree temperatures. I mean, just really calling for a recipe for severe weather. So we continue where we left off here, and we see that these storms, these cells move into southern Oklahoma from Texas. All right, we look at another sounding, and pretty much just kind of explains itself. The environment ahead of these supercells is going to be primed for tornado activity. All right, if we do get any cells that pop up behind this cluster, I think those are going to be able to follow up. They might not be able to be as strong because this environment may be wiped out. But remember, we're going to see very quickly the regeneration of the moisture and just the actual environment that's going to be supportive of severe storms. So that may end up helping those cells if they do end up popping off. But we just see a massive cluster of supercells that end up streaking across sections of Eastern Oklahoma. You can see our photographs now looking a little bit more messy here, but still giant hail expected. A few significant matches here for your sounding analogs, for your supercells there, and then there's a 76% tornado. So this is honestly close to a PDS tornado sounding. We did have a few on the, I believe it was the OZ run of the HRRR last night, but I mean, you can see just a lot of storm cells, beginning to move their way to the east, and usually, really what we see here is that we get a few we get a few clusters of storms that move through sections of central Arkansas. I think for you guys, we're probably going to see more of a damaged wind threat, but these storms will continue to move off to the east. But the ones that you need to be worried about for large hail and tornadoes are these moving across sections of northern Texas into eastern Oklahoma. All right, these are going to be producing tornadoes overnight. We're already getting close to the middle of the night here, but these are moving their way off to the west, or sorry, to the east. But these are definitely producing tornadoes. All of the soundings we've looked at today have been in support of tornadoes. Our sounding analogs have matched, have found a match with tornadoes, and then this pretty much round of severe weather moves off to the north. Now, what do you have for tomorrow? Well, tomorrow's the big day of this event. You can see we do get initiation, all right, into the late morning and early afternoon hours. And we click for sounding here in northern Texas just to take a look at the environment. A little bit of a messy photograph there, but look how scary this dew point line looks. All right, you can see that the drop off on this is crazy, meaning that when there's dry air in the mid levels of the atmosphere, usually that's a very strong signal for large hail, and that's exactly what we see here with the 63-degree surface dew point. A little bit cooler with those temperatures, but obviously they'll get very high once we get into the afternoon, daytime hours, when we get to the prime heating hours of of the day. All right, but you can see our storm slinky turned about 70 degrees out there, and then you can see that also our instability line is what I like to call it, is looking uh, pretty pretty concerning. All right, so that just kind of gave you a sense of what environment is ahead of these storms for tomorrow. But bang, this is what's really concerning. This is what's concerned everybody. You get a huge line of all supercells. These are supercells from pretty much the border of Oklahoma and Kansas all the way down into north central Texas. Look at this. You get a huge line of all supercells here. These are going to be producing tornadoes left and right. This is when we talk about the potential for an outbreak. This is right in the middle of the afternoon, and then these are going to be moving off to the east. But once these kind of all connect and form a line, that's when we're going to see the damage wind potential explode. But this is pretty much right in the middle of where our 10% hatch is for tornadoes. So you're going to get tornadoes that are going to be embedded with this line of supercells, and it's just not looking good for sections of Oklahoma here. All right, but if you look at a sounding right in front of these storms, this is where these storms are going to be moving through. This is kind of just going into the taking a look at the environment that these storms are going to be able to work with right as they enter the 10% hatch area. And this is what we see here. Perfectly elongated photograph here with that possible hazard type being a tornado. Storm Slinky turns 70 degrees. All right, you've got that drop off with your dew points here where it's sitting about 70 degrees. So this is very concerning, guys. And then you can see our a few loose matches here showing a tornado on our sounding analog. So, for Cape, Cape won't be too high with this event. It's always been the kinematics. The kinematics have always done the thing. Last night, the reason why we had that significant tornado in Oklahoma is because of the kinematics. The lower level jet ramped up out of nowhere, and that's why we saw those cells finally, or I mean, no one really expected them to go tornadic, but that's when they abruptly went tornadic. All right, but you can see that our Cape levels do get into the thousands, and some models predict that we'll see Cape levels into the 2000s, but it's really about the lower level jet and the just amount of shear that we get with this event. And you can see that that line does eventually form some kind of damage wind gusts. kind of line here. I don't know if it's going to be a full blown QLCS. We'll just have to see what happens. But maybe perhaps a messy line of storms that's going to move their way off to the east. But keep in mind, we have 30% chance of damage wind gusts. And this is when things get a little bit more, intense. We do see at the end of the run, all right, that sharp contrast finally starts to kind of show up here, and that's when we see the classic negatively tilted trough kind of look to this line here, and then really looks like sections of extreme eastern Oklahoma and extreme western Arkansas are going to be the hardest hit areas, but still DFW Metroplex, all right, tornadic supercells, and also some damage wind gusts. You guys, that's what you guys could be on the lookout for as far as today and tomorrow goes. So, what are the driving factors and ingredients for this event? All right, you can see cape levels shown by the NAM 3KM model. All right, we do see decent cape levels rising into the thousands and even into the 2000s here, but it's nothing that's too impressive, honestly. I mean, they struggle to get too far north. Once again, this event is going to entirely focus on kinematics, but the NAM does eventually show these cape levels, these more serious cape levels, getting pretty far north into central Oklahoma here. This is going to just help out with the storms being able to continue going on for a while. This is going to help the long track factor for those supercells. And we do see eventually cape levels getting above 2,000, well above 2,000 actually, right around that low pressure center going through central Oklahoma. And that's basically all it's going to do is just help those supercells kind of go on for and last a little bit more. But those lingering cape levels will also help that damage wind gust line. But I don't know. The ARRR doesn't show too much with that damage wind gust line. Just keep in mind that the SBC does with 30%, so we'll have to continue to watch what signals we get from the models there. All right, but K levels definitely will rise eventually, definitely for Monday, I think. But for today, it's really all going to be about the kinematics. But Monday is really when everything comes together. You got dew points, thermodynamics, you got CAPE, and then eventually the kinematics, SRH values, shear, all of that good stuff. All right. So speaking of shear, we move over to our what the ARRR is showing for our shear, and you can see this is probably the most important thing we have to look at today. All right, we have to look at how strong the shear is going to be, and if it matches up with where the SPC has highlighted their highest risks, that's when we're going to start to see that concerning threat. So look at what happens as we go into the daytime hours, the afternoon hours of today. We just get a lot of isolated pockets of ramped up shear, and this is what's extremely concerning. If you have in any area that all of a sudden gets shear values into the 70s, 80s, or not even into the 90s, meaning that we have shear in that's looking at 90 knots here. All right, that's what's very concerning for these storms. So if these storms are able to take advantage of those isolated pockets, that's when they're finally going to go tornadic. So I think some of these storms are going to abruptly go tornadic here, because you can see just a few tiny pockets here of elevated shear, elevated massive shear getting into the 80s there with your knots. All right, but you can see that as we continue throughout the day, just a lot of shear overall. But then our big time event with the core of that trough kind of digs in, and then this is what happens as we go into the afternoon and daytime hours of tomorrow. We get much more organized with now a fine streak here of at least 80 knot shear. But this is really starting to look much more concerning as we go into the afternoon hours. We're approaching 100 knots here of shear. All right, you're getting up to about to the upper 90s across sections of northern Texas into southern Oklahoma, right where those storms are going to be igniting. And then boom, as soon as those supercells kind of move through Oklahoma, we're right at peak intensity with our shear values, and then we can see we get into the upper 80s, even close to 100 with our shear into Oklahoma. So this looks like a very concerning and classic severe weather event. You can see the entire shape here of that signature, negatively tilted trough. You can see kind of U shape here. All right, if you get this well-defined trough that kind of digs down into the southern United States, you're going to get a very strong low-level jet that's going to push up against the front side of it. So that's why we're going to see so much shear into into southern Oklahoma, northern Texas, and that's what's driving all the severe weather for Monday. So this is the main driving factor for tornadoes on Monday. All right, I'm going to say that right now, but this is definitely what's going to be increasing that tornado threat. And then you look at southern Kansas. Southern Kansas won't get any storms. I mean, they will, but They're not going to get any crazy storms, but shear gets very intense, over 100 for some of these areas. So, just pretty concerning stuff that we're looking at right now. And finally, for the HRRR, something that we only use for big time severe weather outbreaks. It's helpful, but it's not anything that's too useful to use. It's kind of just something that kind of points out where we have the highest threat of a tornado. All right, HRRR for a significant tornado parameter does bring this up to about a 6 or 7 here. I think this is a little bit underdone, but we do see it getting well over a 6 here, pretty much right around 7 or 8 for sections of Oklahoma. All right, there are some isolated tiny spots here where this does max out, so you can see overall, just it looks like sections of northern Texas, extreme northern Texas, and then into areas of central and southern Oklahoma is where we see the highest significant tornado parameter values. All right, but anywhere in here, from the HRRR seems to be where we're going to have the highest threat of seeing a tornado. And that pretty much matches up for the most part with where the SPC has their highest tornado potential highlighted. All right, so just some very concerning stuff that we've looked at with our severe weather event. I will be posting frequently on X. I will be covering this severe weather event live here on YouTube, so be sure to click notifications on here. All right, but after that, what's gonna happen? All right, we need to know, like, is this gonna be the last of the severe weather? Because obviously, a lot of people think this is lasting for a long time, and it really is. But is there anything else after this? Well, unfortunately, you do have another storm system that is moving its way into the Pacific Northwest. That's what's bringing all this mountain snow and that's that snowstorm we were talking about a little bit earlier on the watches, warnings, and advisories. That's why we have all those winter weather watches and warnings out into the Pacific Northwest. That's related to our next storm system, and the GFS does eventually end up having this generate some possible severe weather across sections of the northern plains into the Midwest. That's another possibility if we do get a trough ejection out there. All right, and then basically when you look this far out, it's just a signal, but you can see that 250 hours out, we do get another pretty significant and robust, very dynamic storm system here. You get a nasty winter storm for the Dakotas and into Nebraska, but then you get some severe weather in the Dixie Alley. So that may be a possibility as we go a little bit later to November, and we'll flip over to that kind of wintertime pattern. But as far as after this event, if there's any crazy severe weather that we have to talk about, as of right now, not really. All right, but I do think that we will see some more storms enter the United States, bringing that potential for more severe weather. So quickly, we're going to take a look at the tropics here because we haven't looked at the tropics in a while, but we do have some activity starting to build up here. So you do have subtropical storm Patty. All right, this is moving towards Europe, and it's going to make landfall in Europe as a subtropical storm right now. 45 mile per hour sustained winds, 992 millibar minimum central pressure with movement east at 16 miles per hour. And then you can also see that we do have an area of interest here with a high 90% chance of developing through the next 7 days and an 80% chance the next 48 hours. This will likely become tropical storm. What will it be? I'm trying to think. I think it's I don't know, but this will be our next name storm here with Invest 97L being its current name right now. But this is going to be moving into the Gulf of Mexico, and that's when we have to see if this is going to do any damage or make any landfall. Obviously, but you can see that as of right now we're expecting this thing to develop for the most part, and we also do have north of it another area that we have to monitor that has currently a 10% chance of developing. So quickly, you look at the Western Atlantic here on the GFS, we do see what happens with this low. It does turn into a hurricane here. This strengthens to a 984 millibar low just south of Cuba. It does actually get down into the 970s as it kind of makes landfall there on the western tip of Cuba. Doesn't mind making landfall in Cuba, and it continues to move through the Gulf of Mexico. Although the Gulf of Mexico waters are still very hot, but they are starting to cool down. So this doesn't go all crazy in the Gulf of Mexico. It just maintains weak hurricane, Category 1 hurricane status, and doesn't really make a landfall, and it kind of just stalls out, does some donut holes, and then finally makes a technical landfall as only 1,002 millibar low, just a very minor coastal storm. So we'll have to watch the signal for that. You can see that, if you look at the spaghetti models for this, all right, a lot of models do suggest that this will make landfall somewhere in the Gulf, perhaps in Florida, but somewhere on the eastern side of the Gulf of Mexico. And then you look at the intensity guidance, and it looks like this will be a tropical storm. So our next named storm is shortly on its way. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. thank you all for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So stay safe out there. 2 big days of severe weather today and tomorrow. All right, tornadoes, all hazards very likely. So please turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any severe weather coverage. Live streams, I'll be doing them here on YouTube. And then I'll obviously be posting updates on X. So go follow my X if you want live updates from whenever the storms hit. But yeah, so just stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next video.